But we were talking about the U.S. women's national team. And look, it's still the biggest story the last 24 hours. They're lost to Sweden, knocked out of the Women's World Cup. And we got to the backlash of it. Everybody hates the women's national team. I hate that, which was ridiculous. But let's just say this, because, I hate to say I told you so. But
they saw
a month before the World Cup came, what did we say? Biggest concern, I don't know where the goals are going to come from because Rapinoe's barely going to play, and Alex Morgan is probably not the same scorer that she was. Now, you never know. World Cup, you get that little bit extra adrenaline. Is she the player she was a few years ago? Where are the goals going to come from? Sophia Smith, you're counting on her. You're counting on Trinity Rodman. These are players that you're hoping. These are not the next great players in American soccer. These are players you're hoping can come up and play well. And that's exactly what happened to the women's national team. No scores, nobody to finish. There's no finishers, no one to put the ball in the back of the net. The Swedish keeper, let's be honest, she played good. She played good. She made a couple of really nice saves, right? The save on Haran was terrific save.
She made 11 saves.
Right?
Saves. I mean, she made 11 saves. Usually about a month's work for a goalie in these kind of competitions.
20 shots total by the United States, 11 saves, right? One shot for Sweden regulation. Told you the United States is going to play their best game, and they did. Mm-hmm. But she didn't play unbelievable. She played well, but it's like it's been amped up that she had this mythical like Tim Howard performance from 2 World Cups ago where he's single-handedly keeping the United States in a game. She made 2 good saves, one really good save. And in penalties, she guessed wrong every single time. And we biffed it 3 times, right?
She guessed right on the first couple. And
but she
couldn't
still got
get it.
beat.
I mean, they were just really well played.
Yeah.
And then 2 gacked over the crossbar and
one hitting the post. I mean,
and the O'Hara post. I mean, she dove to the other end.
Yeah, she wasn't
literally a tap in.
Yeah, and the coach afterwards said, "Oh, I think they were scared of the save she was making." We scored the first 3 times on her, and she guessed wrong the rest of the time. So I think you're just trying to give her more confidence going out of this, because as great as she played in regulation, she was not as good, nearly as good as Alyssa Nair was in overtime. So
Nair, who also scored.
Yes.
On a PK.
I mean, really. Come on. I mean, she's the United States player of the match. She was fantastic. And she nearly saved that ball. Look, you've seen that from now, and you've seen everything.
And what is it, wafer thin? What do you got, 1 or 2 sheets of loose leaf paper?
Yeah, a couple of
between
inches.
the ball and
But
and
the
the
technology,
line,
you get the technology and stuff, and the United States loses.
Way to go. What was that guy's name?
Not Rick Scott. The guy from the technology and stuff. 2014 World Series callback. And we said, where are the goals going to come from? And the big concern was you're going to get a team in the knockout round that is going to be content to play the United States for penalties and try to win it there.
Rick Wild, Jason.
Rick Wild. That's a guy. W-Y-L-D-D-E.
Should have just had Wild.
Like
right
Zach Wild, Zach Wild, the guitarist.
Who's evidently being the latest guy to be questioned about whether he's playing live.
Really?
Yeah, that just popped
Zach
up.
Wild,
yeah,
wow.
Crazy.
So we told you exactly what was going to happen, who was going to score for the United States, and we were going to get to the knockout round, and teams were going to be content with playing for penalties. Now, I didn't expect Sweden to get dominated as much by the United. I thought the United States would play great, but the United States dominated all the way through. Sweden gets the penalties, and they win.
But it's the old rule of thumb, right? I have this conversation with my daughter on her team a ton because, look, there are droughts. Sometimes you just can't find the back of the net no matter how much you, quote-unquote, dominate a game. Here you had possession. Here you had all these shots. In the end, you didn't put the ball in the back of the net. So it's all great, and it looks great. Hey, we've got constant pressure. Eventually, you have to score.
Yeah, look, and that's the point to get to with this is that what people have to understand, what fans have to understand, not the ones that just automatically are rooting against the United States. I don't like Rapinoe. Is that this is not the same team from the past decade plus. We saw it in 2021 in the Olympics when suddenly the team got old. And that's what happens. When your team gets old, you need to get the new players to come in, right? It's just like any dynasty where you think, hey, we have the top players here, and they're all playing a lot, and you have the young players coming up, and they're going to eventually supplant the older players, and then young players are going to come up there. And for the years, it's what we had. We had Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy and Michelle Akers into Abby Wambach and Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan, and now we're and That's just not this team. The United States national team is not as good as it's hyped to be. And everybody saw that over the course of this tournament. And they couldn't score because they don't have a next superstar. Sophia Smith is not Alex Morgan, right? Trinity Rodman is not Megan Rapinoe. They're just players that get pumped up because they play for the women's national team, and rightfully so. Hey, because it's a big thing. It's a big responsibility, and you're a star when you play on that team. But to be a big-time star when it comes to actually playing, that's not who this team is. I'm not sitting here saying, boy, in the Olympics next year, I can't wait till Sophia Smith and Trinity Rodman get to play more. No, this is going to be, well, no more Rapinoe because clearly she's done. You watch her play, she's done. How many more minutes should Alex Morgan play? Alex Morgan was terrible the entire tournament.
Well, the breakaway isn't there, that extra step. And as a team, didn't have that extra step because you throw out the game against Vietnam to a degree. You watched how they got housed elsewhere. That was your sign of impending doom. All these shots on goal, and again, they mean nothing if they're just sailing off into no man's land, wishing and hoping for a misplay, right? If they're bad and not quality, glorious chances, as it were, they're a bunch of nothing. And so we watch that game, and we're raising our eyebrows, and then you score one goal in your next 3 games. Sophia Smith on her penalty kick looks like she's going to cry. The pressure in that moment, that ISO shot, man, that spoke volumes of where we're at.
And she missed the net by yards.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the, did you hit it off the side of your foot? Did you really miss it that bad? We don't have the scorers that are going to beat it. We don't have Rapinoe. We don't have, but because we've seen it so often, well, Abby Wambach was great. Now Alex Morgan's going to be great, and Megan Rapinoe's great. We don't have that. We don't have that on this team. Lindsey Horan arguably is the best player, and Lindsey Horan is a good player, but next World Cup, she's going to be in her mid-30s, right? Roosevelt's going to be over 30.
Well, that's it. She wasn't available for that game because of the yellow cards, right? So she doesn't play against Sweden. You have a number of players missing because of injury. Macario is the one that I would circle, that we'd seen that she could become one of those next players. The one part of Carly Lloyd's discussion of this squad and coming in, and we talked about her a lot last week, was that there may have been a disconnect. And who's more connected to the locker room and that team than her, right, to comment, is that you did have a number of players between Ertz and Rapinoe and Morgan figuring out what she wants to keep playing, but we'll see what her role would be. But you've got people on the finish line. You've got new people coming in, a new coach, and trying to bridge that all together. And you're missing a number of your players that were supposed to be part of that bridge for you because they had experience with your team. Not to mention the rest of the world actually putting resources into women's soccer
And look,
where they hadn't for the decades before.
This is less of, hey, the world is catching up to us, because a lot of the teams.
Well, but if you're slowing down, they're going to catch up.
No, but
it's the ramp down.
It's not them catching up where they're increasing their speed. This was where we took a step back because this incarnation of the team, this level where they're at right now, is just simply not as good as the teams of the past. And just because you say their names, are they elite world level players that are going to be able to continue, and where you have a strong 11 or 14 players that you're going to play all the way through? We don't have that, right? Trinity Rodman is an exciting young player. Well, because her lineage and she's fast, but she has to get subbed out, right? And she had a really bad first couple of games, right? Sophia Smith, you saw, she melted when the pressure was on. And you could say, you feel bad for her, but you're on this team to make that kick. Right, you got her to guess wrong, and you're on this team to make that bleeping kick. Right, I get it. But that's why you're there. I don't see that next generation of star. I don't see, well, boy, this team is all set because they're going to go from here to here. Like, I saw the team go from Ham and Foudy and Akers and Brianna Scurry to Hope Solo, Abby Wambach, Megan Rapinoe. Then in came Alex Morgan, and right at the time they needed her to become an elite level player in 2017, 2018, 2019. All right, great, but there's nobody coming in that way now. Just because they're on the team doesn't mean they're going to be stars. And you saw these other teams now, they're faster than we are. We struggle, like Lindsey Horan struggled in the open field because she's not fast enough. And the only trouble we really gave, the most trouble we gave Sweden was because Sophia Smith and Trinity Rodman were fast down the sides, and they were able to get the ball down. They were able to make a couple of plays, but they couldn't sustain it. And they weren't near every cross they put in was a cross to nowhere. Right? There's like every cross. I'm like, why are you crossing? Because it's just gonna go 30 feet from wherever the player is. Right? It's like they had no sync at all on that. And so it was just, there's glimpses, and I'm not saying the players are bad, and there's glimpses of them being good, but to win World Cups, you got to have big-time star players, and we just don't have that anymore.
Well, and that was the big thing going up against Sweden. I mean, limited them to 3 corner kicks, so victory there in theory, right? Because coming in, that was the big spot. But defending and executing crosses, if you watched any of the matches, and since I don't sleep late at night, I mean, I've seen every minute of their games. It's like, as much as you can limit that, you give yourself a puncher's chance. But again, you still got to find the back of the net, dominating and getting up the sides, and the attack zone is great. But going to the muddled middle, you were losing those 50-50 balls every time. And so now you go home and regroup, and those that want to celebrate their loss. And, for me, it was, I started seeing the vitriol, because I said to my daughter, right, we're sitting there, and she hadn't watched it. And we're sitting yesterday afternoon, and that we start watching. I go, you wait, give it a couple minutes. It might have happened already. She goes, what? I go, people are going to start saying that Rapinoe threw the match. And sure enough, loaded X a little bit later on. That was one of the first tweets that popped up in my timeline. It's like, people are just full of hate.
Because that's what she wants to throw, and have this be her legacy, which is what her legacy is going to be. World Cups, everything else. No, you missed the penalty. You missed it after being so outspoken about stuff. You missed it, like she wanted that to be her legacy.
And that's why she missed it, because she was outspoken and had opinions on things.
Man, I'll tell you.
Jason.
Yeah, what do you got for us?
In the words of the great The Townie.
Oh no! We suck again!
It's gonna be 6 years until we can potentially be another world dominant team, because it's not like we have a pipeline of, we can't wait for this young star to come up. We can't, when this is coming. We have our best players, and right now we see they're not good enough. And are they going to be dominant in the next few years? I mean, look, wait do you see what happens in the Olympics, right? There's still going to be some of the same players. We're still not going to be fast enough, right? That's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, we got to wait another 6 years for that next level. Do we have stars coming up? We got people that can score. Do we have that? It's going to be a while.
How long is Andonovski the coach?
Oh, I think they will give him,
because I'm going to call for a sub right now.
They'll give him the Olympics. I think they'll give him the Olympics.
You know
and
what
then if
he
not,
did
then they'll
do.
go.
I'll go back.